prepared to be shocked and dismayed at how poorly we have protected ourselves, our freedoms, from the enemies from within. Some will sound outdated, but recall, this was written 61 years ago. Goal number 1, U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. Number 2, U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. Number 3, develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Number 4, permit free trade between all nations regardless of communist affiliation. 5, extension of long-term loans to Russia and Soviet satellites. 6, provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist domination. 7, grant recognition of Red China, admission of Red China to the UN and to the WTO, I might add. 8, set up East and West Germany as separate states. Number 9, prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests. Number 10, allow the Soviet satellites individual representation in the UN. Number 11, promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. 12, resist any attempt to
of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next generation. And so it's so important to teach our students about this true history so that we never repeat it. Thank you guys so much for having me this afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarai Maza. I am Venezuelan. Like many, I have lived through the horrors of communism, fearing the police and fearing the police and any agent of the corrupt government, running for my life, being persecuted, not having a moment of calm or peace, having a fight in which your life is constantly at risk. In more than 3 years of persecution for being a human rights advocate in Venezuela, I suffered 3 assassination attempts. The last one left me paralyzed. With countless problems and a total inability to move or feel my body, I was 25 years old. I arrived in this country in a very bad physical condition, and thanks to God and this great nation, I am still standing and moving forward.
Praise God. Yeah.
I love this country, the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I will continue fighting for freedom in this and other lands. Thank you, Representative Borrero, for your achievements against communism. Now in this day, we can honor those who, like me, lost everything. Thank you.
Where do you live now, Sylvia? You live in Miami? You live in Miami? Oh, you're in Miami, yes, okay. So our next speakers will be Jesus Navarro, and he's running for Congress in District 24, which is all of Miami Beach. And what I love about Jesus, that he's a fresh face in the political arena, not a career politician like his opponent, and he's clean and not corrupt, and he's very ambitious and he's very intelligent. So welcome to Jesus.
Woo! To win on Tuesday. Woo!
That's the plan, right? Hi everybody, how are you? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, for those who don't know, my name is Jesus Gabriel Solano. I am running for Congressional District number 24 against Federico Wilson. Yeah, long-time career politician. I've had an uphill battle, but you know, we're struggling and we're going to persevere and move forward. And hopefully on Tuesday, November the 8th, we will accomplish what we need to do. That said, something that brings us all together here today. Obviously, we are maybe personally, or we are not personally, we know someone who was affected by communism. I personally was not affected by communism, but I can tell you my parents, my grandparents, friends, extended family members, I know somebody. And especially living here in Florida, we all have to know somebody, right? Well, you know, I started doing a little bit of research into my own family and where they came from and what they did and how they arrived. And, you know, I won't bore anyone to death with my family and their struggles coming to this country. But I can tell you that my family arrived here in Miami on April 25th, 1966. Okay? So a long time they've been here. My mother and father both came here at 3 years old. Well, my mother arrived here at 3. My father came when he was actually at 14 from Cuba. And he came to this country because he was going to be forced into the military in Cuba, which he did not want to fight for. Obviously because he doesn't share the same principles that government, that regime had. And I could tell you that my grandparents, and one of our representatives mentioned that something we cannot forget is those stories, that history. That's very important. Why? Because the day we forget the stories of the past of our friends, our family, we're likely doomed to repeat that. It's very important. So thank you for your contribution. And I think that's very important. I had 3 family members, brothers of my grandfather, who's no longer with us. They were actually hung in Cuba before they took their ranches, before they took all of their property, everything. They were stripped from everything that they ever worked for in their lives back in Cuba. I know somebody, and especially living here in Florida, we all have to know somebody, right? You know, I started doing a little bit of research into my own family and where they came from and what they did and how they arrived. You know, I won't bore anyone to death with my family and their struggles coming to this country, but I can tell you that my family arrived here in Miami on April 25th, 1966. Okay? So a long time they've been here. My mother and father both came here at 3 years old. Well, my mother arrived here at 3. My father came when he was actually at 14 from Cuba. And he came to this country because he was going to be forced into the military in Cuba, which he did not want to fight for. Obviously because he doesn't share the same principles that government, that regime had. And I can tell you that my grandparents, and one of our representatives mentioned that something we cannot forget is those stories, that history. That's very important. Why? Because the day we forget the stories of the past of our friends, our family, we're likely doomed to repeat that. It's very important. So thank you for your contribution. And I think that's very important. I had 3 family members, brothers of my grandfather, who's no longer with us. They were actually hung in Cuba before they took their ranches, before they took all of their property, everything. They were stripped from everything that they ever worked for in their lives back in Cuba. And they were forced to come here. And I think that's something that we need to really think of. And I think that's something that we need to really think of. We need to really think of that. Why? Because we're starting and beginning to see a lot of the same symptoms that have ruined these countries, ruined the world, happen here. We're seeing the weaponization of governmental institutions and a host of other issues. I can tell you also that this constant push from the left to disarm Americans, that's a huge issue. That's a red flag. We want to make sure that that doesn't ever happen, and I don't think it ever will. but we need to remain vigilant. We need to make sure that we are always involved politically and in any way that we can. I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. God bless all of you. I'll be here. Feel free to ask me any questions. All right? So thank you guys.
Thank you!
Okay, go Jesus. We'll be watching Tuesday night. Okay, and hopefully they pass this law because it's so important to teach all the evil of communism. And like one of the signs says, communism is the most deadly form of government and we have to stop it. And socialism is the road to communism and we have to stop it. And we have to embrace capitalism because it's the only type of economic model that creates prosperity to all. So thank you, and let's keep on working to turn all of Miami-Dade, all of it red, and all of Florida.
Personally funded by Inez, and some of our membership fees, which is very minimal. If you'd like to support us in having this message go out far and wide, if you want us to continue to do this every year and make people aware of the victims of communism and not to become victims of communism, please donate to our cause. We also have the Guardians of Human Rights, which is gohumanrights.com. Please check out her website and see how that goes, and see how how much you want to support. Finally, the Victims of Communism.org. I have it written down actually, but I don't even want to look at it. Victimsofcommunism.org. They have a museum. They're a big organization based in Washington, D.C. If you'd like to support them, you can also support them. Remember, no amount is too small. Even if you do $1 a year, it'll help add up. As long as we get support from the people who see the importance of it, and you are there to support us, we will continue to do all the work that is needed. And please join us again next year so that we can, if we all bring one more person, we'll double in size. And next year we probably won't have the one up the street and therefore won't have a helicopter background noise. We will have better music, right, Luigi? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you during the walk. Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Karina Nitzman. Karina was born in Odessa, Ukraine, and holds a Master of Science in Engineering from Johns Hopkins University and a Bachelor of Science in Economics, what I believe is the most important matter of the 20th and 21st century. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. So I feel like I'm actually kind of responsible for all of the stories here because I was actually born in Soviet Ukraine where, yes, most of you know, so the communism started under Lenin's regime and unfortunately has spread across the entire world. And everyone thinks that if they can just implement it correctly, it will be different. And it's not. And I've lived under it. I was fortunate that after the wall fell, my mother decided that it was time for us to leave. And I do remember a little anecdote back in my first grade math class. You have 5 loaves of bread, 2 greedy Americans take 1 loaf each. How many are you left with? And I was like, well, they take it all. They're greedy Americans. So when my mom told me that we were immigrating to the U.S., I was like, why in the world would we go to America where they hate us? And that was something that I was indoctrinated with at such a young age, believing that Americans were bad. They were capitalist pigs. They did not want anyone to be a community. They didn't like teamwork. They were just in it for themselves. So when I did come to America, we moved to Baltimore City. I was 8 years old. Mind you, I did not speak English. We grew up in low-income housing on food stamps. It was my single mother and my two elderly grandparents. My mother was working 2 jobs, going to school in the evening, to the community college, learning English, and also advancing her career because she was a tailor during the day and she was also a caregiver, because that's the only jobs that she could get in America without having a professional training that was accredited here. So I was raised by my grandparents and I was kind of off on my own. And I remember the first day of school, and every time I say the Pledge of Allegiance, it takes me back because, again, did not speak English. And my 2nd grade class, everyone around me stood up, put their hand on their heart, and began to recite it. And I had no idea what it was, but I knew it was something that I wanted to be a part of. I knew that